Hello friends, myself Dr. Nidhi Darbari on My Education Treasure. In my previous video on objective writing skill of micro teaching, I had explained about the differences between aims and objectives. Today in my present video, I am going to explain about writing instructional objectives. NCRT has defined objectives as a point or end in view of something towards which action is directed and a planned change sought through the activity what we set out to do. According to this definition, teaching objectives include three things. Direction, that is, objectives determine the direction of action which is designed for achieving an ultimate goal. They keep the person in action on the track all the time. Planned change. It helps for a planned change. When action is done in a definite direction, desired change in the behavior of students is brought about. And activity. It provides the basis for organizing activities. Action is a must in order to achieve any objective. It is a reality that the objectives have the power, such a power due to which all the teaching activities of the students are managed towards a definite direction. Writing instructional objectives. Objectives are used in education, where they are called learning objectives, behavioral objectives, instructional objectives, or performance objectives. The term refers to description of observable student behavior that are used to make inferences about learning. Every teacher must learn to write these types of objectives. Writing clear, measurable objectives that are tied to a specified standard is a skill that requires practice, feedback, and experience. To write an objective, one should begin with an understanding of the particular content to which the objective will relate. Understanding in more than one way the content to be learned should be the goal of teachers and the students. This implies that teachers who prepared objectives should have complete knowledge of the appropriate content. The standard provides a body of content in which a series of objectives can be written that define how a student will demonstrate mastery of the standard. The objective deal not only with what the students will know or be able to do, they have nothing to do with what the teacher will do during the instruction. The purpose of a learning objective is to communicate. Therefore, a well-constructed behavioral learning objective should leave little room for doubt about what is intended. A well-constructed learning objective describes an intended learning outcome. It contains three parts, each of which alone means nothing, but when combined into a sentence, communicates the condition, a verb, and criteria to which a student must perform the behavior. If any of the three contents is missing, the objective cannot communicate accurately. The condition. The condition is a statement that describes the condition under which the behavior is to be performed. The condition part of an objective specifies the circumstances, commands, materials, directions, etc. that the student is given to initiate the behavior. All behavior relevant to intended student learning outcome can best be understood within a context of the condition under which the behavior is to be performed or demonstrated. The condition part of an objective usually begins with a simple declarative statement such as the following: upon the request, the student will. This means the student is given an oral or written request to do something. Given some physical object, the student will. This means the student is actually given something, such as a map, a number or multiplication problem, a literary passage, etc., that relates to performing the intended behavior. In the examples above, there is no mention of the description of the instruction that precedes the initiation of the behavior. The instruction that leads to the behavior should never be included in the actual objective. Instructions that lead students to accomplishing an objective is a separate issue. Here we want to concentrate on describing only the condition under which the desired student behavior is to be performed. The second one is the verb. The verb is an action word that connotes an observable student behavior. A verb is an action word. In a learning objective, the verb is also an action word, but it is also a special kind of action word. The verb in a learning objective is an action word that connotes an observable behavior. For example, although we as teachers all want our students to appreciate one thing or another, it is impossible to see when a student appreciates something. Understand is another noble word that connotes something we want our students to do, but we cannot see understanding. The best way we can do is make inferences that a student appreciates or understands something based on what the student does or says in a controlled situation. A behavioral verb is a word that connotes an observable action or the creation of an observable product. Verbs such as identify, name, and describes are behavioral because one can observe the act or product of identifying, naming, or describing. Some verbs are embedded in a phrase that gives them a specific behavioral meaning. For example, state a rule and apply a rule. In this case, the behavior is contextual and the context is the rule in question. There are many verbs that qualify as behavioral. The criteria. The criteria is a statement that specifies how well the student must perform the behavior. The criteria part of a learning objective is a declarative statement that describes how well the behavior must be performed to satisfy the intent of the behavioral verb. For example, an objective might be of the form: given a list of the first 100 numbers arranged in ascending order, condition, the student will identify verb at least 9 prime numbers criteria. Notice that the objective does not specify which 9 numbers and sets a floor of at least 9 as a minimum. Also, the method by which the student identifies the minimum 9 prime members is not specified, that is determined in actual assessment. The student could circle the numbers, highlight them, draw a line through them, etc. It is also implied that the student will be correct if he identifies more than 9 correctly but does not specify whether it is acceptable to identify 9 correctly and 1 or more incorrectly. According to the objective, it would be acceptable to circle the following numbers and still meet the intent of the objective: 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, 13, 17, 19, 23, 24, 26, because he got 9 correct and 2, 24, 26 incorrect. If the student must identify only prime numbers, then the objective would need to be modified to include that provision. If you found the video to be informative and interesting, please give a like to the video to motivate me, share it with others and subscribe it so that whenever I upload a new video, you will get a notification. Putting it all together. Well-written learning objectives are the heart of any lesson plan. If the objectives the teacher composes are fuzzy and difficult, if not impossible to assess, the rest of the lesson plan he creates that is based on the objective is likely to be flawed. Before beginning to write an objective, spend a little time thinking about what you are describing and remember to make the student behavior observable. While writing a learning objective, ask the question, does this objective clearly communicate and describe the intended learning outcome? Learning to write learning objective that describe what the teacher wants takes patience and practice. Make sure to get feedback. Thank you very much for patiently watching the video and don't forget to subscribe.